In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. George Orwell. Yeah. This is Blood Politics. The only podcast where we don't talk about politics. We be about politics. And our mission statement is to empower, educate, and encourage everyone to speak out against fascism. Speak out against injustice and fight for freedom and equality for everyone. This is Blood Politics, and we ain't stopping till they put us in the grave. We ain't gonna be quiet, and we ain't gonna be scared, and we ain't gonna go along with the crowd. This is Blood Politics.
All right, what's up, guys? How's everybody doing? Welcome back. Smoke them if you got them. Pour a nice big beer if you got it. Whatever you're doing, do it well, and I appreciate you for doing it. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Welcome back to the Blind Politics Podcast. What's going on, chat? How's everybody doing? What's up, Rox? What's up, Karen? What's up, Samuel? How's everybody feeling today? How we doing? Moving and grooving. What's up, Papa Don? What's up, dude? Aqua Lover, how are you? What's up, Teague? What's going on? How's everybody feeling today? What's up, Gamer? What's up, Forever Young? What's up, Stone Flower? What's up, Greg? What's going on, Patui? Appreciate everybody once and again for joining the program. Like I said, make sure you hit that like button as you filter in. Today's going to be a slightly different broadcast. I'm going to kind of take my professional advantages of having ownership over the platform and kind of choosing what I want to do with today's podcast. We're going to be diving into a couple aspects of obviously the ongoing news. Not only the Andrew arrest, obviously we'll be diving into that, but some further aspects of the ongoing news. But I wanted to kind of take the kind of the majority of the show, I'd say, and we're going to dive into kind of the propaganda usage. And we always ask ourselves, right? We've been talking about the ICE camps and the warehouses and stuff that have been, going around, and they're buying all these, 10,000 square foot warehouses and what they're going to do with them. And, how we're just not going to sit by and be silent. And how could people in, Germany, how could they have not known? How could they have sat back and be silent? Well, let me throw this on the screen because I'm going to take my liberties, if I may, and throw this up on the screen here. There you go, Chad. I appreciate you guys. I'll get to you in just a second. Let me take you off for just a moment. I'm going to throw this up there at the stage. How you doing? There we go. So this is a War Stories on YouTube, their channel here, and this is called How the Nazis Brainwashed the German People to Support the Final Solution. And I really do think that it would be, good of us to watch and get through and kind of learn a little bit of the historical, relevance of what we're talking about today and the one-to-one connections. And not only that, but if you take the time to, at the same time, learn the history about how the Jews were persecuted as well. But, you can also simultaneously interject the word immigrants and, the people that Donald Trump call, disease-ridden parasites and, people that don't belong to be here and Untermenschen. Like, think about and interject every time you hear the word Jews or the Jewish population or Jewish race. Also think about the plight that they went through. But let's see if we can kind of do a one-to-one connection of, the immigrants and how Republicans in MAGA talk about immigrants today. Because I think it will give us some good insight as to kind of how the propaganda is being used and weaponized against the Republicans. Hopefully some of them are starting to come out of it now with the Epstein investigation and the lies that they're being told. But yeah, lots to get into. I kind of wanted to say, it's going to be a little bit of a different show, but let's dive into the chat. Say hi to everybody. What's up, Jay? What's up, Yakov? What's up, Ian? What's up, Olga? What's up, Trev? What's up, Evizon? To everybody on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram. Thank you for watching. Please make sure you hit the like button. Make it worth your time for the show, for you spending time here on the show. I do appreciate you guys and the mods as well. Oh, thank you, Deb. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, dear. Thank you. Appreciate the 5 gifted. Make sure we're reaching out to Deb and saying thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. You too can kind of contribute just like Deb did by gifted memberships in the chat, super chat in the chat, super sticker in the chat. You can reach out via Venmo here, which is the quickest and easiest way to contribute to the show, I believe. Or you can sign up for a YouTube membership just underneath me, or check it out at patreon.com/BostonBrian. So I appreciate you guys. It's the only way we stay running here. It's the only way the channel continues to grow is with your help, with the help of people like Deb and everybody else that contributes. If you do contribute like Deb just did, stick around till the end of the show. We always make sure that we highlight and appreciate everybody that contributes to the show. If I don't get to it during the show, obviously. But, you know, like I said, stick around. Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to say it, W. I'm trying not to say it. You dummy. I see you in there. I'll check out my email. I'll check it out. I'm not sure that I saw it yet, but I will certainly check it out and make sure that you can get the link. I promise. I won't forget about you. I won't forget about you. All right, let's dive into a couple of the first stories that I want to look at. Can we do some laughing first? Are you guys ready? Can we do a little bit of laughing? Right, as crazy as the times are, you know, as you know, momentous and as like important and dangerous as the times are right now, like at some point you still have to take the time out to laugh. And there's absolutely no better person right now that is making people laugh than this moron right here, because good God Almighty, is he embarrassing. Holy shit. I mean, the whole Board of Peace thing, having it be 3 hours long is embarrassing enough, but the shit that took place during this like ridiculous meetup here of people that just want to kiss Donald Trump's ass. Donald Trump's falling asleep. He really wants people to know that he's not gay. Which, again, the more people try to get you to believe that they're not gay, just instinctively, I tend to believe that they are, which is okay, you know, but it's a little bit strange to hear from, again, the president of the United States at what he's supposed to be speaking at, you know, so-called Board of Peace. But as somebody put on their tweet, I think he was really bored of peace because he was struggling mightily to keep his eyes open. But there's a couple clips here. We're not going to dive into too much. Like I said, I spare you for the most part. Most of this guy's nonsense because it's asinine and stupid at this point. But I mean, the fact that we know what we know about the Melania flop and the empty fucking theaters, and then he goes up in front of cameras and literally said it's #1 and that the theaters are packed. Like, people were making joke videos about Donald Trump saying that. Like, they were making like satire videos about people in MAGA, in Trump, claiming that it was a worldwide success and that the theaters were packed. People were literally going to these theaters, buying tickets, going and sitting in the theater and filming the fact that they were the only people in the fucking theater to see this show, to see this movie. And yet Donald Trump went on stage and says it was #1. But there's a couple moments in there we're just going to laugh at him and then dive on. But yeah, I think the main point of this whole fucking speech was that Donald Trump doesn't want you to think he's gay, apparently. Listen to this. Listen to this.
But I was very proud of it. President Pena of Paraguay is here. President, thank you very much. Young, handsome guy. It's always nice to be young and handsome. Doesn't mean we have to like you. I don't like young, handsome men. Women, it's like men know how to have any interest.
Talk about fucking being tone deaf right now, right? Talk about having absolutely no self-awareness of like the moment of the news of like what's transpiring all over the world as far as arrests and accountability and people resigning and investigations. I know it's not taking place in the United States, as we'll hear from James O'Brien on LBC before we get into, you know, the documentary aspect of today's broadcast. But even like it's like rule Britannia, right? The fucking England seems to be showing us the ropes and like kind of showing us, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. The king quite literally fucking, you know, AOKing an investigation into his son. Like, you know, I know it's only step 1, and I know they've hit it for years and years and years and years. But at least at this point in time, as we're talking about accountability, we're seeing none of it here in the United States, and at least other countries, as we've talked about, are seemingly taking it a lot more seriously, as we'll find out in just a second. But listen to this fucking shit. The he's gone. All right, it's gone. The brain has leaked out of the ears. It's somewhere in his shoes at this point, which he continues to step on. It's probably why you hear that squishing noise every time he walks now. It's the brain that has leaked out of his ears and somehow made it all the way down to his shoes.
Good. That's right. That's right. Thank you
But
very
again,
much.
the lack of self-awareness to be like, yeah, I like the younger girls as the Epstein Files drama is still rolling out, right? As he's trying to continuously disassociate himself with this, even though everybody surrounding him, including himself, is in there about 1.5 billion times. You know what I mean? It's like the lack of fucking self-awareness. And he goes on, because check this, listen to this rambling fucking nonsense. Right. And this is like utterly embarrassing at this point. The people surrounding him knew it was embarrassing. Like JD Vance had a bunch of moments where the crowd was just like, what are you talking about, dude? We're not going to get into all of that. But yeah, check out this rambling bunch of fucking nonsense. Like, again, imagine speaking at what you're calling the Board of Peace, right? Trying to project this image of you being, you know, the strong president out there ending wars and shit. And what are you complaining about? That time at, what was it, the Kennedy Center? I forget now. Was it the Kennedy Center or the UN? Was it the UN? Oh, there's no audio on the video? Is anybody else saying that? Can anybody else hear the video? Give me thumbs up if you can hear the video. Roxanne saying no audio. Get bored with peace. Yeah. No, but I mean, was it at the UN? No, I know it's stopped now. It's paused now. The video's paused. But when I play it, oh, I see. I got you. Okay, my apologies. I see what you're saying. Oh, I messed it up now. All right, hold on. Now I got to find that place again. I'm gonna screw it. I screwed myself. I wasn't showing the right screen, and then I went back to the right one, and then I changed it. All right, let's see if we can find the moment. Let's see if we can find that moment again. It's really not that important, obviously, but he just goes on and talks about the the teleprompter that wasn't working. He goes on to talk about the escalator that broke. Let me see. Give me a second if I can find it, because it's kind of worth the watch, because then he goes into talking about Melania and how he like saved his life because she was like a strong athlete. It's the weirdest shit. It really is. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. If not, it's not a big deal.
And Johnny's sometimes they're too energetic. That's the problem.
Fuck.
It's not good.
Hold on.
But it is good because we're proud of her. She did. We can't have two stories.
Yeah, here it is right here. Here it is right here. I got lucky or unlucky, whichever way you want to see it. But listen to when he's talking about this is the Board of Peace trying to project power on the world stage. We ended all these wars. Look at all these people trying to kiss my ass. And again, what's he complaining about? The fucking teleprompter and the escalator. Listen to this nonsense.
And to my last speech, they did turn off my teleprompter. I got up there. My teleprompter didn't work. I'm sitting in front of all of you people and more. I had no teleprompter. I knew I was in trouble because I'm walking up. You know, the teleprompters are over here. I had the most beautiful speech ready. And I was all set to knock them dead. First, I had an escalator that stopped. You know that. It's going up. Boom. It's lucky my movie star first lady was...
My movie star first wife. I mean, they are really stretching this, right? Like, he's fucking gotta ham this up a lot in order to get anybody, even the MAGA idiots, to believe that she's a movie star now because of the documentary that was a flop and had to be pulled out of literally entire countries. Oh, I love it, though. It's great.
In front of me, because I put my hand on a certain part of her body, and I was able to stop my fall. Otherwise, because she had no trouble. I said, boy.
What? This guy's on drugs, right? He's getting fucking pumped full of shit. I don't know what the bruise is on his hand, but it's definitely from an IV of something. And he's on it right now.
That was a very sharp stop, Johnny. So I said, that was strange. I've been on a lot of escalators. It's never happened before. Usually it stops very slowly. This was just boom.
Yeah, usually when you're on an escalator, it stops very slowly. Has anybody been on an escalator when it stopped? Again, when has anybody ever been on an escalator when it was either not in motion or fully stopped? Have you ever seen an escalator stop slowly? Again, a ridiculous thing to point out. But why? What's he talking about? What the fuck? Yeah, usually, typically, when you're on an escalator and it stops rather slowly and instead of abruptly. Like, okay, Gramps. What do you want? You want a cheeseburger for dinner? Like, come on, you get the prices right on a little bit. Like, let's get on your PJs. Settle down.
But our first lady was right in the proper location for me.
Now listen to this beautiful piece of propaganda that he's about to do, trying to get everybody to believe that Melania's movie was like, you couldn't even get into the theaters, right? You couldn't even get a ticket. It was so hot. Ooh, boy, was the Melania movie smoking. I mean, let's hear those box office numbers, Donnie. Let's hear them.
I'm waving to people, and she was holding on a little tighter. She knew what was happening. She did. She said, that's a very successful movie out right now. Like, #1. Can you believe this?
Like #1 on what is that again? Is she #1? What platform is that? where are we looking at this graph where the Melania documentary is #1 on anything? I think he might have the chart upside down, Gramps.
And she's a big movie star. And I always say,
big movie star now, guys. Big movie star. Melania Trump. I mean, you can't make it up. This is literally the skits, the satire skits from people on the left, TikTok, Instagram, like anybody following this shit. Like what they were literally making skits of this exact thing of MAGA people going out there and being like, oh, it's awesome. It was #1. Couldn't get in the theaters. It's like he's quite literally doing that in fucking real time.
I say it's trouble because I always say there's not room in one family for 2 stars. I told her that.
And there he is threatening to kick Melania out of the family, I guess, because as you just heard him say, there's not enough room in this family for 2 stars. Well, good. Luckily, nobody considers either one of you guys stars, so you got plenty of fucking room for one to develop in that family. Believe me. Believe me. We ain't going too far on that one. But all right, let's dive into a little bit of the news here because obviously a lot of people talking about the former Prince Andrew arrest. Kind of looking at this as like, why haven't we seen any action take place like this in the United States? What seems to be the deal? And again, a lot of people around the world are asking the same questions because I want to take a look, obviously, after that at this LBC clip from James O'Brien. I just blanked on his name for a second, where he says, look who has taken the fall, Simon Marks on the Epstein files. And then they go on to ask, why hasn't Donald Trump been arrested? Or why are we now seemingly showing the United States how this is supposed to go? Because, we've seen action not only in this country, but around the world, but not in the United States. And people are picking up on it. And it's not just people in the United States that are seemingly noticing that same thing. So I want to dive into that next. But here's just a quick update, if you will, from ABC News talking about the arrest. Again, just to get everybody up to speed, up to date, if you haven't heard about it already on what took place. So here we go.
And we have some breaking news, some stunning news out of London. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the former Prince Andrew, has been arrested, presumably in connection with his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I want to go straight to our foreign correspondent, James Longman.
Hi, George. Yes, extraordinary news out of the UK this morning. The former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, has this morning been arrested on the Sandringham estate where he was living after having been removed, of course, from the home he was living in Windsor.
I should have like a bunch of claps ready. We should have like that's what I should do. I should get ready a bunch of like sound clips, a bunch of drops of like, people clapping, cheers, horns beeping, right? Fucking, like just noise makers. So like every time somebody gets arrested, like Andrew here, we can play it on the show. Like we can fucking yell and cheer and set off fireworks and shit. Like we can have our own little celebration every time one of these sick pricks gets locked up or arrested or perp walked or anything like that, for a matter of fact. So please remind me that I have to go in and get some claps and cheers and stuff like that. That'd be great. Appreciate it.
Thames Valley Police, the police here in the UK, put out a statement. They haven't named him specifically, but they are saying a man in his 60s has been arrested. As part of the investigation, they say we have today arrested a man in his 60s from Norfolk on suspicion of misconduct in public office.
Yeah, I mean, again, the wording around this seems to be very vague from what I saw before I came on. But again, this also gives them not only access to other things, they're also investigating and searching other properties, and they're going to find other shit, right? I mean, who knows if this guy's still dumb enough after all that he's been through to still have something around. But again, this is, even though it's misconduct in a public office, I mean, it's pretty clear what the hell this is in relation to. I mean, and there's no mistake. And I believe, I don't know if it's read on this one or on with James O'Brien, but I think they do read a statement from the king himself about this exact thing. So
carrying out searches at addresses in Berkshire and Norfolk. They say the man remains in police custody at this time. They are not, like I say, naming Andrew, but we know that it is him. This pertains to emails, we believe, that were published recently in the most recent Epstein files published by the...
So it's a clear fucking, it's a clear line you can draw in between the arrest and the Epstein files that we're looking at here, even though, again, the wording is probably, especially us here in the United States, is kind of like, what the hell does that mean type of thing. But again, this is, it leads into more stuff, leading into more, not only investigations, but leading into more, searches and seizures of his property and, of his spaces.
Department of Justice, which seemed to suggest, they allege, that Andrew was forwarding emails to Jeffrey Epstein whilst he was trade envoy here in the UK. Now, as a public official, that is misconduct. That is what the police are alleging. That's the charges that they presumably are bringing to him if they do indeed charge him. He is under arrest and remains in custody for that.
Good. You know what? And I'm not against them. I'm not against them or anybody else using any bit of information. I don't care if they have to get him on fucking suspicion of tax evasion, right? To get that guy in there, to search the properties, to get the information, to hold that above his head, to say, hey, tell us what you know about this, that, and the other thing. You know what I mean? So not necessarily, going and, getting arrested for the, the crimes that he's alleged to have committed in the Epstein files and the pictures. And all of a sudden that's, that suggests that he's in relation with the crimes that have committed in the Epstein files. But this like suspicion of misconduct in public office because he was emailing with Jeffrey Epstein is kind of like, the low bar, right? It's just kind of like it's like, what was it? What was his name? Where they tried to get him on tax evasion and they didn't want to. Why am I Al Capone? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you should have got him off the streets. That would have saved a lot of fucking people's lives if you had arrested him right off the bat when you could have got on for tax evasion instead of waiting and trying to get him on these, the big deals and big schemes and stuff like that. Meanwhile, people are dying every day. That's kind of the similar thing here. I don't care what you have to get him on. I don't care if it has little to do with the Epstein files, and then you got to get him in there and tie him up and wrap him up and get information that you could use against them in the Epstein files. But just get these people in fucking custody.
Details they are yet to give us, but as trade envoy, he spent more than 10 years traveling around the world on behalf of the British government.
Right, Mary. What I'm saying is they knew it was something they could get him on long before they actually got him on that. You know what I mean? And it would have saved, again, a lot of people's lives, a lot of time, a lot of energy. If they had just, again, tried to go after him when they originally knew they could have on the tax evasion instead of waiting and shit.
Kind of foment relationships with other countries to better Britain's kind of economic outlook, if you like. That was seen as a member of the royal family could do this.
This is just the beginning. Somebody, who is that? Somebody said arrest the king. Yeah, WW said arrest the king. This is going to be something, and again, you'll hear from the rhetoric coming from not only the people you're hearing now, but also from James O'Brien, LBC, a lot of the commentators on there, suggesting that this is going to be a huge impact, have a huge impact on the royal family. It definitely puts into question, where they go from here, kind of how they're treated in the public eye. So again, this is just kind of the beginning of all of this. This was never going to be a quick, easy process of not only going and finding these people, but locking them up, prosecuting them. And then all of a sudden you get to deal with the aftermath as well, whether it's the families, whether it's the companies that they're associated with, the charities, anybody they're affiliated with is also going to have the backlash from this. And they're going to see, some effects from it as well. So this is just the beginning. I know you may have been being kind of facetious in there, but, you never know what's going to come from this, especially, when the public starts learning more and more and more about the sexual crimes and their involvement in these things. Again, everybody suspects that the more egregious of the crimes, the videotapes, the audio recordings that we know he had, a lot of the things that aren't in the files that we kind of suspect that or know that should be out there. Right. We know that he had fucking bugs. We know that he had video cameras. Where are a lot of the videotapes from all of these high profile people that were all over these different properties, whether it be Zorro Ranch, whether it be the island, whether it be in New York, whether it be in Palm Beach, all over the world, on any place that they're frequenting, you can be damn sure that guy had a camera or a microphone or something set up. And there's recordings that we haven't heard. There's videos that we haven't seen. And a lot of people are thinking the worst of the worst is in the files that we haven't seen yet. You know, the 3 or so million that they're holding back, even though they told everybody they've released everything, that's horse shit. And people are suspecting, in my opinion, rightfully so, that they've done their best to hold back the worst of the worst, right? So again, let me see if I think there's only about 2 seconds left in this. Let me see that I wanted to play.
His status would provide Britain with that kind of heft on the world stage. But the emails from the Department of Justice suggest that when he was in these conversations in places like Singapore, Hong Kong, I've got a list here in front of me, other countries that he went to, he would then have these kind of confidential documents in these emails, and then it looks like he was forwarding them on to Jeffrey Epstein, another one.
And again, who knows where this leads to? You know, maybe this guy knows something, and maybe he starts squawking about world leaders, about Donald Trump in particular, to save his own ass, right? I wouldn't fucking put it past these son of a bitches to start snitching, right? Of course, that's what they fucking do. They like to save their own ass. They want to, you know, they want to hold on to whatever moniker, power, and fucking financial prestige that they have in the world. So they'll do anything and everything to try to do that. They're low-life, low-level scumbags that have been born into this fucking privileged society. I'll guarantee a fucking overwhelming amount of the people that are now listed in the files and the wealthy individuals come from either fucking wealth themselves or did absolutely nothing themselves to accrue that much wealth, but did it off the backs of other people or the ideas of other people, or their parents were wealthy, or they just had this connection or that connection that worked out for them. So don't put it past these low-level fucking scumbags to start squealing and snitching on each other to try to help themselves out. Now when these prosecutions are starting to come here, before it was just public pressure. It was just, you know, public scrutiny and how you were looked at when you went outside. You know, your titles as prince, right? They were stripped, but it's not so much. They weren't worried about prosecution. Now we're talking about fucking prosecution here, okay? Now the shit starts getting fucking real. This is when you start seeing what these people are really made of, above and beyond what we know in the fucking crimes that they've committed in the Epstein files. This is where they really start to show their true character. And I guarantee there's a lot of people that have got a lot of information on each other that they'd be more than willing to corroborate if it meant, hey, take 10, 15, 5 years, 2 years off my sentence. So again, this is just the beginning of the snowball at the top of the mountain, right? And this snowball is going to be slowly rolling, and it's going to be collecting a fucking shitload of snow on the way down. You can be damn sure, right? So let's jump on to this LBC clip, a little bit more on the same topic here. The police arrest Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, but also listen to how they tie this in and compare this with the action, or I should say non-action, in the United States, right? Because this is, again, very enlightening when you hear how other people across the pond in Australia, just anywhere but the United States, are speaking about the United States. Like you tend to be like, okay, you take a step back because we all know the fight and the rhetoric and the lines that, that everybody has that say if you're red or you're blue. Like we all know that. We all know the agenda of the mainstream media, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. Like, so we're used to the rhetoric, right? We're used to hearing kind of the same things, either that or just we're in agreement with the people that we listen to or totally opposed to the other side. Well, when you listen to, people that are on the same side as you, but in a different country, kind of talking about what they view and how they're seeing things, it kind of gives you a different aspect. It makes you kind of, look at things from a different view. And I think it's it's very important that we continue to do so. So again, here's James O'Brien and LBC talking about not only the arrest of Andrew there, but also how it ties in with Donald Trump and the lack of action here in the United States. Check it out.
And it occurred to me, as I noted earlier this morning, that a lot of countries are currently reminding the United States of America of all the things that the United States of America is supposed to be. And I wonder whether...
Again, perfect beginning on that. What have we been talking about here in the Blunt Politics podcast, right? How that other countries are now stepping up to the plate in ways that the United States hasn't even fucking thought of yet, or are actively saying that they will not do, as far as Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, Kash Patel, all these other assholes. Fucking Dan Bongino's already patting himself on the back on his 14th podcast since being removed or since leaving. You know what I mean? But the fucking opening statement there, it seems like all of these other countries, England included, in this, specific investigation or this specific matter is showing the United States how the United States should act based on what the United States, puts itself out there as, what we try to represent our country as, what we actually stand for. but not what we're doing in this instance because of who we're led by.
Events here this morning, and of course prior to this morning, because Peter Mandelson's career is effectively over and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is currently in police custody. And yet in the United States of America and in Donald Trump's regime, the rock that was thrown into the pond by the latest tranche of revelations in the so-called Epstein files has, well, the ripples haven't really reached anywhere. Are we showing the United States the way, do you think?
You absolutely are. Absolutely are in this specific instance, right? You just can't deny it. I mean, again, whether it's public pressure, whether it's Mandelson, whether it's fucking Andrew here, whether it's resignations, investigations, now arrests, all things that we've seen little to none of here in the United States. What do we have? Larry Summers stepped down. We got one or two other people that have kind of stepped back from the companies because of the emails that have come out. Other than that, you don't fucking hear much, especially as it pertains to the people right now running our government that are closely associated and affiliated with not only Donald Trump, but also heavily engaged in and affiliated with the Epstein files, whether it's Nutlick, whether it's Elon Musk. I mean, there's about fucking 19 to 20 of them that surround Donald Trump right now that in some way, shape, or form had dealings with Jeffrey Epstein in Ghislaine or Ghislaine Maxwell, went to the island, we're on the yachts, we're on the planes, we're communicating, trying to rehab his image like Steve Bannon, right? When are we going to start seeing some handcuffs here is what the people across the pond, the great people across the pond are asking. And that's why, it's like in this situation, you got to give them credit. Rule Britannia in this case, you know what I mean? Credit what credit is due to the people across the pond.
Well, I think it is a pretty extraordinary moment, James. I mean, when a country with an unwritten constitution that does everything sort of by custom and practice and tradition teaches a lesson about accountability for alleged activities to a country that has a much vaunted constitution all written down in black and white that is supposed to contain all of the necessary checks.
The irony of, again, a country that doesn't have a written constitution stepping up in ways that, that a country that does have a written constitution that clearly states, specific varied things in it, that give laws and regulations and, the ways of our society. But now we're being fucking, we're kind of being outstaged here, you know what I mean, by a country that doesn't have a written constitution. And again, not to say that this wasn't covered up, not to say that this wasn't a prolonged thing, and not to say that there isn't guilt in association with other people that haven't seen accountability yet, right? So let's not drag this out too far. Let's not make it seem like, everything in the walls are crumbling yet. There's still a lot of fucking work that needs to be done. There's still a lot of people that need to be talked to and discovered and brought in. There's still a lot. So again, but just to see that this is beginning, just to see, we got to take the W's where we can get the W's. As I always say, the wins, even the small wins, have to be celebrated. Right. And we've been waiting for this for a long time. The victims have been waiting for this for a long time. And you just got to just think about how they feel seeing this. Finally, it's not in the United States, right? It may not have anything to do with any particular victim specifically, right? Unless it was, somebody that had, relationships or dealings with Andrew themselves. But just to see that, there are people stepping up to take action, whether it's the fucking London police or, the government or the king, whatever, at this point. You can just put yourself in their shoes for a second and just, think about how they feel seeing this and how it's probably like, at least a little weight off their shoulders. Like, okay, this is possible. We can do this. This is something that we could possibly see happen is people fucking be held accountable. We could possibly see justice. And again, this is the beginning and we don't know where it's going to go. But again, it's a step in the right direction as far as holding these fucking monsters to account is concerned. So again,
and balances to keep a democracy ticking over. I mean, that's quite a moment here today. And you absolutely are right to make that point about the news from South Korea as well, because when I woke up this morning, at a first glance, the New York Times news flash about South Korea was just ahead of the news flash about the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And yet, down at the White House there, over the cornflakes and the bacon and eggs this morning, absolutely no one is wondering about the possibility of unmarked cars from the FBI rolling into the White House driveway so that the President of the United States or any figures within his inner circle and entourage might find themselves helping police here with their
So clearly noticing that there's not a care in the world, that Donald Trump has clearly put his minions in the right positions, whether it's Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, all the rest of them, Pete Hegseth, you name it. He's got these people so wrapped around his fucking finger and in the right positions of power that he knows, like he just said, he's not worried about the FBI rolling up in unmarked cars like happened to, the equivalent happened to Andrew here. You know what I mean? They're not worried about it. There's no call for accountability coming from within the government. It's all coming from outside of the walls. It's all coming from the public, the citizenry, right? Meanwhile, we're being, stonewalled, and we're hitting roadblocks at every turn with Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, and anybody that really does have the power to affect some change in this. And they're noticing it. You know what I mean? It's not like this is again, I show you this to let you know that the lies, the propaganda, the bullshit is not fooling anybody, right? It's not fooling MAGA. It's not fooling us. It's not fooling people, outside of this country. It's just not fooling anybody. So for them to think that they're going to get away with this and that like arrests are just going to start taking place all over the world, but we're not going to expect anything to happen here in the United States is complete and total shite. Okay. Bollocks. If I can represent as we're watching some LBC here, right? A bunch of fucking horse shite.
Is the president settling in for a very busy day? I'm sure the White House will say something at some point. He may well take to social media about the events.
Has he said anything yet? Have you guys seen? Let me see here. Let me just check for a second. I'm curious if he's commented on this at all. Let me see here. Last time I tried to get on here, they weren't. Yeah, see, I think I've been banned. I'm pretty sure I've been banned from Truth Social. Because it hasn't let me, it hasn't let my Trump loves Epstein account on in a while. Unless it's just the site's down, I'm not sure. I haven't really tried in a long time, if I'm being honest. Let me see. Let me do a refresh. Maybe that'll help. No, let me see if I can go to the truth. Maybe if I go to Trump's thing by itself here. Sometimes you can go to his post and it works. Let me see. Maybe this will work. I mean, the site is just fucking total horseshit anyway. It's just a complete trash bag at this point. So I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, for some reason it wouldn't work. All right, let me just see. Just do a quick search here. That was 5 days ago. What? That can't be right. Refresh. Oh, that's pinned. My apologies. All right. The commissions of art. I only want Americans who win elections. That was 18. So nothing yet that I can see here, obviously. No statement, no comment on the arrest of Andrew from the old Presidente of the United States here from Donald Trump. So just kind of curious if he had said anything. Just kind of curious.
Calling Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and let us know what his viewpoints are on those. But look, it is an extraordinary moment when what is a quintessentially American story, the story of Jeffrey Epstein, and his unbelievable...
Another great point, too. Another great point. You know what I mean? It's stemming from the United States. This is, like he just said, I'll repeat what he said, a quintessential United States story. And we're seeing much more action take place outside of the United States than anything remotely seen here in the United States. Right? Many more people here in the United States that should be fucking locked up again. And they're all in positions of power, mainly. Right?
Ability to beguile the wealthy and powerful, bring them into his inner circle, many of them now facing questions about what they knew about his criminal activities. And the only people here on this side of the Atlantic that so far have taken any kind of fall for it are those who have either voluntarily resigned from their multi-million-dollar positions at Goldman Sachs, like Barack Obama's former White House counsel, Kathy Roman, Kamala, or the man who until yesterday was leading the Hyatt hotel empire, who stepped down because of revelations about his...
That's a few more people. Remember how we went over the oversight Dems list that they put out on Twitter of people that were, kind of have either stepped down, resigned, been held accountable in some way, shape, or form. So there's a few more to add to that list. Not many, not enough. We want to see all of them added to that list. But again, to see that list growing is, again, a good thing. You got to take the victories weekend. But he goes on here, like people have kind of been speculating in the chat. We won't get into too much of it. But he gets into, the effect it's going to have or could possibly have or should have on the royal family, right? I mean, it's been a long conversation in Britain, like what the royal family kind of means in this time of day and whether or not, why they're continuing to get this kind of allowance that they get and if it's really something that they should continue. Again, I'm not going to dive too deeply into it, not being from there myself, but it is a conversation that people have been having over there. But this is not going to do any good for the people that say that the monarchy, the royal family should stick around and have a large role to play. But again, who knows? You never know what's going to come from it. But yeah, he goes on to talk about that. But I wanted to dive into this before I run out of too much time because I wanted to, again, give the documentary I want to watch ample time to go through it because I think it's great to, again, not only learn about what happened in history, but how it relates to what's taking place today and just how similar the tactics are. I mean, you take out, I know we always talk about it, and people think it's hyperbole, but you take out Joseph Goebbels and interject Stephen Miller when we watch this and think about like, holy shit, like that makes sense. Like now I know where he's getting these fucking, these actions from, where he's getting these ideas from. But before we dive into that, I want to take a look at this because this is a Midas Touch video, and they put together a pretty good video here where they're talking about how Trump's panicking as FBI reports surface in the Epstein files. And I do just want to gloat for a second here, and once again let you know that you are not wasting your time by watching Blunt Politics. You are watching the right channel. You're doing it, as you're supposed to, because we beat Midas Touch to this because they released this 3 hours ago. And what they're talking about is the Substack that we were talking about on the show yesterday. Remember the Substack that we brought up from Roger Solenberger talking about the credible piece of evidence, the credible accuser that Donald Trump's FBI kind of put down and listed as a credible piece of information. Well, yeah, so Midas Touch talking about that same Substack this morning. So, obviously you got it a day early. I mean, so again, congratulate yourselves. I appreciate you for watching, but just goes to show that you're not wasting your time here, I think. Right. So that they go on to talk about this. But what I really wanted to play is they put together a few of these clips from Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, not only from their recent podcast together, but from their past podcasts and things that they've said. And I really want to play that right now because I think it's really fucking poignant to make a point of what they were talking about and what they sounded like before they got into their position of power and how fucking gung-ho they were on getting all the files out and releasing all this fucking information and holding the criminals accountable. And then it cut to today. Dan Bongino back to podcasting. Absolutely nothing achieved. Kash Patel lying under oath saying that there's absolutely no evidence to suggest that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked girls or women to anybody other than Ghislaine Maxwell, right? Pam Bondi lying under oath, saying that there was absolutely no evidence to suggest that Donald Trump was involved in any criminal acts. Meanwhile, we find out in this, not only with all of the other hotline allegations, tip line allegations made specifically about Trump, but this one here that Donald Trump's own FBI listed as a credible allegation in which they met with this witness 3 or 4 times. So this wasn't just a hotline, tip line situation that they just kind of read and determined if it was credible or non-credible. No. They met with this witness. Not only that, but this witness, according to biological representation and some of her features, right? One of somebody with the same features won a settlement from the Epstein estate. And again, that doesn't happen unless you have some really credible information and some damning information to prove your case, right? So again, I just want to go in here. There's only a couple clips that I wanted to dive into. A couple from, I think it was the recent podcast that they had together, Bongino and Kash Patel. And then they go on to play, again, the hypocrisy of some of the shit that they've said in the past. So let's check this out. And again, before we dive into that, I'd really appreciate if you hit that like button. If you could subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 20,000 subscribers. It doesn't take much. It's free to do both of those things. Doesn't cost you a dime. Again, there's a multitude of ways you can contribute financially if you're in the position to do so. I know the economy's tough. I know things are tough between everybody right now. So again, I don't expect much from anybody. You're not forced to come out of pocket with anything in this channel. I don't hide anything behind a paywall. All of my content is free. I want to make it so that no matter how bad anybody is struggling, you still have the opportunity to see anything that I have to say, because I find it ridiculous that anybody would have to come out of pocket to hear something that I find or deemed to be important. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. But there's a Patreon, there's a Venmo up in the corner. All I ask for is a buck or two. Anything above and beyond that's totally 100% up to you. I know a buck or two is probably the max. You know what I mean? And we're trying to share the show. We're trying to spread the show so that you guys aren't responsible for keeping this show going yourselves. And I thank you to everybody that does share the show and contribute yourself. Again, stick around to the end of the show. If you do contribute, I always make sure to congratulate, highlight, thank everybody that does send in a financial contribution. So I appreciate you guys. Again, we're doing this all on our own. No financial backers. I have left my job as a plumber to do this full time because I find it that important. I think we need to be speaking up on the issues. And again, it's only with your help and your support that we can continue to do this. So I appreciate it. Send it in if you can. If not, share the show, like, subscribe, all the free stuff. It's just as important. All right, let's dive into these clips.
Play this clip.
Everything's a level 10 decision, Cash. A level 10 meaning there's a pardon the language, but a shitty decision and a shittier one. Because if there was a good decision to be made, someone else made it. And then when those decisions,
fucking cuckling it up and chuckling it up with your fucking boy like this, knowing what your fans are saying about you, right? Knowing how pissed off the MAGA base is that you guys haven't done a fucking thing, and not only not done a fucking thing, but have lied at every turn and have been a roadblock and have fucking, now changed your tune to he didn't kill himself in prison to, he definitely killed himself in prison, because Dan Bongino's seen all the files, like he said. Who's he on with? Laura Ingraham that time? Yeah, two buffoons. Who said that? Yeah, Rob Law. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. The problem is the two buffoons can't even look at each other. Cash is trying, but he's having a tough time getting Dan Bongino in focus, if you know what I mean. But anyway, these two morons chuckling it up here. Meanwhile, I guarantee the live chat is calling them assholes and dickheads and all of the above, thinking that they didn't do absolutely anything. Dan Bongino has failed to, as far as I can see, even remotely bring up the Epstein files since his return. Maybe I'm wrong on that sense, but I haven't seen any clips to suggest he has. But listen to these two fucking yuck it up here.
that's every day. I know you know this because I would knock on your door and you'd be like, what now? And I'd be like, here we go again. Like something else will come up. But I just want to put into perspective for folks out there, when that decision can't even be made by me, it goes to you. When it doesn't go to you, it goes like to the president's desk. He's dealing with like level 11 decisions.
Oh, here we go. Now passing off blame to the president again, putting more in his hands that he's responsible for, more of the cover up that he's responsible for. You see how that goes? Well, if it's not you doing it, it's got to be the president making these decisions. But again, I don't give a shit about what they're saying now because they're all just trying to obfuscate. But look at this here. I think this is where they show what he used to say in the past. This is Cash in the past.
Hard decisions to allow us and give us the resources that we need and to back the blue in law enforcement and to prioritize working with state and local authorities, then we wouldn't be able to do what we did. But you're right. We had a lot of hard decisions. That comes with the territory of the job.
Oh, my apologies. This is still from the same time frame. I think there's a clip coming up where they play a little bit of what he said in the past. I don't want to misrepresent the clip. My apologies.
Once you look outside of the cauldron of Washington, D.C., and this is one of the things that, I'm trying to remind myself of every day. Outside of here, there is a different America than the one that lives in the national capital region. And I try to remind myself every day when making those difficult decisions that you talked about.
What does that mean? I don't know what the fuck that means. There's a different America that lives here in the capital? No, I'm pretty sure they're the same Americans. Pretty sure they're the same people. But what does that even mean?
That we make on a daily basis, that we are making a decision collectively for the rest of America.
Yeah, and the rest of America wants you to get off of your fucking ass and start prosecuting some people, you son of a bitch. That's exactly what they want. That's why Pam Bondi was hammered into oblivion at her committee hearing, right? That's why people are on your ass. That's why Dan Bongino's back at his fucking podcast desk, right? That's because he couldn't handle the fact that he was getting roadblocked, that he was getting stonewalled, that he couldn't come out with the information that he wanted to come out with. So he's had to back it on out, right? You heard the beep, beep, beep. That's Dan Bongino backing his ass out of trouble, right? As soon as humanly possible. But these two people, Cash can't see it coming, baby. He can't see it coming. You know what I mean?
For the minority of people that are living part-time in Washington, D.C. Pulling
let me go, because I want to pull up a couple of these other clips here. Yeah, here's one of them here that used to, there you go.
This clip. Please do not let that story go.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book?
FBI.
But who? That is that. I mean,
that's Kash Patel saying that the FBI has Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book with all of that, but that no longer exists. The client list doesn't exist now. Remember that.
That's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Would you declassify the Epstein?
Again, remember how fucking strongly they used to come at this? Again, and we always talk about it, and we always, bring up and reference Dan Bongino and Patel and, the rest of these idiots that was so gung-ho on this and kind of how they changed their tune. But it's really when you see it and how gung-ho they were and how much they've changed their tune now is when it really kind of starts to take effect. It really starts to hit home just how much of a change and just how much they're getting instructions or have been ordered to change their tune.
Files.
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that
a lot of phony stuff in there. Like, how would you know about any phony stuff in there, right? Again, that begs another question. What are you talking about phony stuff in there? Have you seen the files? Did you look through them? What do you mean phony stuff in there? How would you know of anything that's in there unless you've, again, had eyes on the files or know directly because of your history and the parties that you frequented and the fact that you were directly engaged in the criminalities, and you're going to use that and say, oh, don't believe anything that's in those files. Anything could be in there. No, yeah, believe me. We found out really fucking quick just, how much of anything could be in there.
World. But I think I would.
This isn't about Epstein or 9/11 or JFK or RFK. It is, but it isn't. It's about a bigger thing. If you're lying about that, you're lying about everything.
That's funny. Dan Bongino, if you're lying about the Epstein files, you're lying about everything else. I wonder if he still holds that same principle true and holds Donald Trump to that same belief, right? You think he's holding that and he's using that equally in his life, or you think he's, kind of being selective on where he chooses to say things like this and who he kind of holds to that, to that account? Because it's funny to hear him say that now. If you're lying about the Epstein files, which is clearly what's going on right now, Donald Trump called it a hoax. Then he said he's been exonerated 15 times. It was written by Clinton and Obama and Biden. Somehow they knew 35 years ago that they were going to need it to, in 2025. I mean, all of this, but now it's real, but he's exonerated, but it's fake, but he's exonerated. Like all of that is all the lies and bullshit from Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, himself. You know what I mean? Like if anybody knows it now that he's being lied to, it should be these idiots. It's just, it's amazing.
On the Epstein tapes, folks. Who's on those tapes? Who's in those black books? Why have they been hiding it?
Geez, good question. That's a good one. Maybe you should get in there and try to, change that all. Oh, you did? Oh, you're already back to podcasting. Okay. All right. I see.
Donald Trump has talked about the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. Everything's going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
And then last week, Bongino had Trump on, and rather than talk about the Epstein files.
Right. We don't have to go on to it, but the fact that he's not even speaking about it is a dead clear giveaway that he never once cared about it or has been clearly instructed by Donald Trump and the people around him not to talk about it, right? It's crazy. I mean, it is crazy. What time we got, though? Well, we got about an hour, so it should give us enough time there. That should give us enough time. All right, so I wanted to dive in. Is there any more clips of this? Not sure. I think this is kind of a useless clip of Trump, I think.
different experience. You are a results guy. You're a spreadsheets guy. Say
Donald, I told you it was going to be useless. Donald Trump's a spreadsheet guy. Yeah. Okay. All right. There we go. Yeah. Don't talk about the Epstein files. Let's talk about spreadsheets. All right. Let's dive into what I'm kind of calling the main, the main event here today, which is the echo of the 1930s propaganda and how the propaganda tactics that history warned us about are still being utilized to this day and are directly associated with the times that we're now in, right? So I appreciate you guys for allowing me. My name is on the show, so I'm kind of taking the privilege here. This is going to be a little bit different than stuff that we normally cover, but I think it's very important. And again, not to forget the actual history being told here, but also what I want you to do is at the same time, I want you to, again, interject. I don't want you to take out because I think that's a bad way to say it, but continue at the same time, use the word immigrant where you hear the word Jews or where you hear the word gypsies, right? Think about these statements that you hear in this documentary that you continue to hear from Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, the recitement of Mein Kampf, right? The different ways in which they went about handling not only the media, but the radio stations, handling opposition, what they're doing as far as the camps. I mean, so much of this is directly associated and has a one-to-one connection, and it's crazy. And again, we can kind of have the conversation whether or not it's a direct one-to-one connection because of obviously the time and societal differences and the fact that I don't believe the end goals obviously are the exact same, but that doesn't mean that, the processes aren't as dangerous and that we're not seeing people die as a result. You know what I mean? I don't think we should take anything away from that whatsoever. So again, credit where credit is due. I'm hoping I can play this. I don't think I should have any problems as far as copyright issues are concerned. I don't monetize my lives anyway. So fuck them. So again, this is War Stories on YouTube here, titled How the Nazis Brainwashed the German People to Support the Final Solution. And as we continue to talk about the ICE camps that are popping up all over the place, these warehouses and facilities and the maltreatment of people that are getting sick, the kids that are held in captivity that are getting sick day by day, right? All of the things that we're hearing now, and whether or not we're going to sit by and be silent, we hear them talking about stealing our elections, right? They're stripping of us of our rights, 1st, 2nd, 4th, 14th, 24th, pick an amendment, and they're trying to strip it away from you, right? So how long are we going to sit by and just kind of act like things are just going to be normal and we can just show up to the voting poll? I mean, we can just show up to the voting booth and hope everything's going to be okay, right? Not saying that's not the case, but at what point does the boiling frog in the fucking water come to the realization that it's the boiling frog in the pot of water? You know what I mean? That's kind of the question here. So again, I want you to equate this to what's going on today, but also recognize the historical significance and what is taking place on the screen. So again, credit to where credit is due. This is War Stories on YouTube. Again, I think they got 1.24 million subscribers. This has over 1 million views, posted a year ago. And again, I think it's very important that we learn our lessons here that history was trying to teach us so they don't continue to repeat themselves. I appreciate you guys. Hit that like button. Again, I'm Boston Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast. My passion for World War II is what brought me into politics, and I'm just trying to share what I know, and again, the insight that I may be able to give, and try to, again, equate and maybe give you some answers as to how effective and why the propaganda that has been spread amongst the MAGA base and the MAGA cult was so effective, okay? It's not a new lesson. This isn't something that they stumbled upon themselves. These are things that were learned a long time ago and were utilized a long time ago in a multitude of different areas, nations, and countries to detrimental effect. Okay, so let's dive into it. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much to the chat. Thank you so much to the mods for all that you guys do. I can't thank you enough. I can't, appreciate you guys enough for all that you do, not only in this chat, but for all of the communities here on YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook. You guys are amazing, and these channels only succeed and thrive because of the passion of you guys here in the chat. So very much appreciated. All right, let's dive into it.
All their evil actions, nothing defines the Nazis like the final solution. The murder of some 6 million Jews. But how did they get an entire nation to buy into the wholesale slaughter of an innocent race?
And again, similar questions that we ask ourselves now. How does MAGA, how did Donald Trump, how did these fucking freakazoids, morons and corrupt fucking thugs sway so much of the population to believe their bullshit, to get to vote for a racist, a bigot, right? A fucking somebody that is homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, all of the things that we know about Donald Trump. How is it possible that an entire fucking population of 30, 40%, whatever it was at its height, was swayed to believe the bullshit, to vote for this guy 3 different times, knowing what we know, knowing what you knew, all of the things that he said, all of the crimes that he was committing, like all of the shit. How is it possible? Same kind of aspect here.
They're performing murder and terrible crimes, but at the same time trying to make it look as though it's correct.
This is the story of how Hitler and the Nazis groomed the German people.
He likened the Jews to a virus or a wound that won't heal.
Using all their darkest arts to make them complicit.
We do have partners in crime here.
In the worst genocide in human history. Of one thing, Hitler never makes any secret. He hates the Jews. Recovering from his wounds at the end of the First World War, he blames left-wing Jewish politicians for surrendering, stabbing Germany in the back. In the 1920s depression, he rails against a Jewish conspiracy, the root of all evil, from communism to corrupt financiers.
And again, it goes into a little bit of the backstory and the history of the Nazi Party, but then it gets into, again, their use of propaganda and kind of how they take control, just kind of here, kind of setting it up.
This poisoning of the nation.
There you go. There's the first mention of the poisoning of the nation, right? Does that sound like something similar to what we've heard Donald Trump say before? Poisoning the blood of our people. Right? The people that are coming across the border are, poisoning our society. They're coming across with diseases, all things directly from the mouth of Donald Trump. Also directly from the mouth of Adolf Hitler in the writings of Mein Kampf.
German Jew is the enemy within.
He's an enemy in racial terms, in cultural terms, in national terms.
Again, we're not even 2 minutes into this yet, and we've already heard several statements that Donald Trump has recited and repeated verbatim, right? Poisoning the blood of our people, vermin, right? Calling them fucking rats. I mean, these are all things that I'm not making up. I'm not just saying that he said. He absolutely said this. I mean, we could pull up. I remember there's a good graphic that Midas Touch made. Side by side, what Adolf Hitler has said in the past, and side by side to what Donald Trump has said in speeches. And it ain't that far apart, from the Ein Volk, Ein Reich, Ein Führer to the one land, one people, one Führer, whatever, the one leader, that Donald Trump had. I mean, these are clear-cut instances that they're taking the playbook and just interjecting and inserting their fucking beliefs, so their slogans into it, and just kind of filtering that rinse and repeat type of thing.
The Jews' greatest crime is that they pollute the pure genes of the Aryan master race. They must be eliminated.
The nation is no longer willing to be sucked dry by these parasites.
And again, parasites. The country's no longer willing to be sucked dry. What do they talk about as they speak about immigrants, right? They're all dirty. They're all nasty. They're all fucking criminals and drug dealers and rapists. And again, how much better our country would be if we just got all of the immigrants out and we just had, a purely white Christian nationalist country. I mean, does this sound familiar? Am I making this up? Does this not sound like a one-to-one connection? I mean, you don't have to, the leap isn't too far, right? You don't have to be an NBA basketball player to make this leap and to see what I'm seeing here.
Everything he'd said since 1922 pointed towards the ultimate idea that you rid yourself of the Jews physically.
By 1941, he is master of everything. He has defeated France, captured Poland, and his army is advancing deep into the Soviet Union.
And for me, I would equate this time, if I'm looking at what's the historical connection here, I would look at this as the time in which Donald Trump had everybody in the position of power that he needed to get away with the crimes, right? So right now, where Donald Trump has Pam Bondi, where Donald Trump has Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon, where he's got Facebook went down. My apologies. Let me see if I can edit. I don't know why all of a sudden Facebook, they don't like what I'm watching, maybe. Just is this too heavy a subject? Let me see. Remove. Put it back up. Try this again. See if that works. Sorry about that. Should be back up in 3, 2, 1. It's back up. But yes, I would equate this time in which, Adolf Hitler was at his most powerful to when Donald Trump right now has the most people inside the government to make it fucking hum like he wants it to hum. He's got the House, he's got the Senate, he's got the Supreme Court, he's got the FBI, the DOJ, the Pentagon. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I would relate it to what's going on right now. And it didn't go well for Hitler after this stage, just like it's not going well for Donald Trump after this stage.
Now he can begin on a lifetime's ambition to create a pure German nation free of Jews. But how can he carry the German people with him?
Now this is where it gets into the swaying the people aspect.
Aware his anti-Jewish policy is an acutely sensitive issue for ordinary citizens. In fact, during his first 4 years in power, Hitler barely mentions the Jews in public. And when he does move against them, it is slowly, step by step. They're banned from certain professions. Then they lose their rights as citizens and their livelihoods. Thousands are driven to flee abroad. During all of this, there are some objections. However, most Germans just stand and watch. But the actual killing, the elimination of all those who remain, their own neighbors, is still a step too far.
He recognized in the German people there was
you
this.
can see the buildup, like you can see the step by step as they're talking about here, and as we'll hear about. I believe this is they're speaking about the T4 euthanasia project, right? Which is basically it went to show Hitler that they weren't at the point of control that they wanted to have yet. It was still. Facebook is just not going to let me show this apparently when I'm showing on here, so I'm not sure what to do with that. I apologize anybody trying to watch on there, but apparently it's just not going to let me do it. I'll try one more time, and if it doesn't work, I'm not sure what to tell you. But again, this is historical. It's just history. Why would I not be able to talk about history at this point? I'm not sure. It's back up now. My apologies. Sorry about that. Let me know if it goes down again. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Let me see if I go back.
Residual sense of decency, which could be offended by horrific policies.
Oh, right. So how basically it was a step-by-step process. So even at this point, they didn't have the control. They didn't have the grasp on power. They didn't have the capability to sway the population to going with what they wanted at this time. And they learned that from the T4 euthanasia project, right? Which the public had very much an issue with, where they were going around and taking, mentally handicapped people with, physical deformities, people that were gay, whatever it may be, for any reason. If they thought you kind of to be an outcast or an other, you were then ripe for this program to be euthanized and killed, right? But there was backlash. There was kind of a pushback from the citizenry at this time, which told Hitler that, okay, that was basically the last time that he signed his name onto any proclamation that was going to go towards the killing of, his citizens or anybody at that point. Basically, Hermann Goering was the person, or Heinrich Himmler was the person that inevitably signed off on it, so that the Fuhrer kind of had that bit of separation, that bit of detachment from it, because of what happened with the T4 euthanasia project. So it wasn't always like, that they could get away with anything from the jump. It was a slow process, and the propaganda they'll now talk about is what allowed it to go from, hey, we're going to speak out about this, to, okay, we're just going to sit back and let it happen. So that's kind of what this goes into.
But killing Jews is indecent. It will take all the Nazis' skill to sell this to the German people.
And to Stephen Miller, Joseph Goebbels. Okay, so again, I want you to not only recognize the historical reference, not only recognize the historical importance and the plight of what we're looking at here, but also how it connects to right now. Who represents Joseph Goebbels best today, right? If you had to think about who's standing by the Fuhrer's right-hand man, that's probably even more racist and bigoted in his beliefs than the Fuhrer is, right? That is trying to control the press, that's out there all the time, trying to fucking, butter up the citizenry and talk to Fox News, right? It'd be hard-pressed for you not to think about Stephen Miller in that role.
The task for Joseph Goebbels, the Nazis' master of persuasion. Goebbels shares the Führer's loathing of the Jews and is determined to convince his fellow Germans.
It was Goebbels who was responsible for selling the idea that the Jews were this kind of cancer or this plague at the heart of German society.
Much like Stephen Miller has been tasked for quite some time with getting the population to believe that we're surrounded by drug dealers, criminals, murderers, and rapists. If they don't look like you, if they're darker than you, if they have a Spanish-sounding last name, if they're black, if they're from another country, even if they do look like you, but they don't speak like you, they don't belong here, they're not like us, we don't want you here. We want a specific Christian nationalist country with an Aryan type of people here. We don't want, you want you speaking English, you got to assimilate, like all of that. They don't even want you to assimilate at this point. They just want you out. Right. And it talks about this, like, Donald Trump, how he speaks about the self-deportations, like trying to make the environment so fucking hostile that people just inevitably say, okay, I'm picking up myself before I get wrapped up in a nice detention center, or before I get shot on the streets of the United States, I'm going to leave myself. Similar aspects also took place here. Right. So you can see the connections.
Realized that if you could control what people consumed, then you could control them. And he was one.
What was that? 1 second. Jordan says, want to point out the Holocaust victims included 6.5 million Jews and 5.5 million people of other ethnic groups. Of course. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, gypsies. I mean, you got to talk about the prisoners, the Russian prisoners of wars and the horrors that they endured as well. I mean, all different types of people were in there. Again, as we speak about the T4 euthanasia project, that was a lot of German citizens. I mean, it wasn't when they first started killing it, they were killing their own. At that point, again, you know what I mean? It was their own, anybody that had, again, a mental deficiency, or again, a physical deformity, or anybody that was seen to be an other in the German society was brought to these places to be euthanized, right? So, I mean, that's another thing that people forget. They think it was perpetrated, upon people all over the place, or, first, and it wasn't. It was their own people. And then they kind of learned from there and how to get around, the public outcry and the outrage that the public had about that. And they kind of worked around, and then they learned and they figured out how to do it. And that eventually led to the Holocaust, in which, again, as Jordan points out here, a lot of different ethnic groups were also caught up in, right? So good. I mean, obviously important to continue to point out. So I appreciate you, Jordan.
The first people to realize that.
Cinema is...
excuse me, I'm going to go back 1 second, because I think this is a very poignant statement here, where he figures out that he's got to do something in order to win over the population. Check this out.
With this kind of cancer or this plague at the heart of German society. He realized that if you could control what people consumed, then you could control them. And he was one of the...
Such a fucking important statement right there. I just can't emphasize how important a statement that is. If the learning of, if you could control what people consume, you can control what they believe. Right? Therein lies the creation of Newsmax. Therein lies the creation of RSBN. Therein lies the creation of One America News, or Real America's Voice. Right? Therein lies the creation of Benny Johnson, Ben Shapiro, all of these other, Tim Pool, Fox News. That's why these channels exist. Because they know if they can control what you watch. Why do you think so many billionaires own magazines, own newspapers, own media companies? Right? So that they can control what is put out there, so they can control what you think about, what you know or don't know, what you believe or don't believe, whether it's Bezos or whether it's Rupert Murdoch, right? A lot of these people would kill Elon Musk with Twitter. I mean, just think about it and how much they understand now. If they can control what you believe, if they can control what you watch and what you consume. I mean, no different than advertisements. I mean, think of how fucking advertisements have proliferated and have spread into our society. And you see them every fucking, no matter where you go, right? On buses, on benches, on fucking telephone poles, and on planes are driving them by. They're on the, you know what I mean? I mean, they're on the commercials. I mean, they're on the radio. They're on everything. So in a similar aspect, they've learned that if they can control all of that, even if they do something bad, they don't have to put it in there. They don't have to talk about it, and they own the fucking network, or they own the newspaper, or they own the magazine. And Donald Trump found that out where he created his own fucking web, the Truth Social shithole. If he can control, if they can get people to stay on that and they don't hear what CNN and they don't hear what, the mainstream media and progressives and everybody else is talking about, then they can fucking control them in this bubble. And that is all lessons learned directly from the Nazis. Directly from people just like the Nazis. Not saying this is the beginnings, this is the origins. I'm not saying that they were the only ones that kind of exploited this. Lots of regimes over the years have exploited this fucking aspect too.
First people to realize that.
And as he said, they were the first people to realize that. Okay, if we could, hand them out radios and then again play over the radio that we just handed out that they're loving us for handing out. If we could fucking play all of our news all the time on that. Think of how, they're winning on both sides. They're gaining favor with the citizens because they're handing out radios, things that are obviously, not widely had at that point, I'm sure, or, not easily obtained. I'm sure they were expensive. We're talking about the 30s and 40s here. So I'm sure like a lot of people, didn't have a TV at some point. There were people that, had to go over their neighbor's house or had to go over their friend's house to utilize their radio so they could hear this program. You know what I mean? But now when they're handing out radios, love this government. Everything's going great. They're handing out radios. They're building roads and shit. So people are working. The unemployment level's down. Yep. Meanwhile, they're just slowly rolling you into this, this propaganda state of just kind of being a robot and going along with anything. So here we go.
Cinema is one of his favorite tools for manipulating public opinion. The film, The Eternal Jew, produced by Goebbels' propaganda unit, has a stark message.
And we've talked about this specific propaganda video before, so I believe it's Der ewige Jude is how it's pronounced in German. But again, if you take the aspects of how they're talking about the Jewish people, and again, recognize the historical significance, but also think, okay, if I were to change out the word Jew for immigrants, and listen to the way that Donald Trump and the Republicans are talking about immigration and immigrants now, it's not far off. And it would actually be hard to kind of decipher which one is which at this point.
Wherever Jews settle, they behave like rats and parasites.
Let me see if I can find that. While this is playing, I'm going to see if I can find that Midas Touch graphic so we can play that, so I can show you that and show you, just kind of the one-to-ones.
He's the Jew as the eternal corrupter, specifically, of course, in the sense of Germanhood. The greatness of the German state will be destroyed if the enemy within, the eternal Jew, is allowed to go on performing his acts of destruction.
But when the film is released, it's a box office flop. It's a lesson for the Nazis.
Yeah, this one right here. I think you guys will remember this one. Trump echoes Hitler's words on the campaign trail. I will get rid of the communist and the vermin, said Hitler. I will get rid of the communist and vermin, said Trump. I will take care of the enemy within, said Hitler. I will take care of the threat from within, said Trump. Jews and migrants are poisoning Aryan blood. Migrants are poisoning the blood of our country, says Trump. One people, one realm, one leader. Ein Volk, ein Führer is from Hitler. One people, one family, one glorious nation is Donald Trump here. And again, those are just some of the quotes, just some of the ways in which that they've fucking directly associated themselves with the writings of Mein Kampf, or again, the spewings of Adolf Hitler himself.
Leading the German people to buy into this evil agenda is going to be a complex process. The danger lies in inflaming public opinion, and the risk of getting things wrong is already brutally clear. Since 1939, the Nazis have been carrying out a secret euthanasia campaign. It will become their dry run for how to commit mass murder without upsetting the German public. First, they need willing accomplices. Pliable nurses and doctors are instructed to single out terminally ill and disabled children. The next step is to deceive the people who might object. Parents are told their loved ones are to be sent to care centers for special treatment.
Yeah.
And finally,
just like, right now they're calling them ICE detention facilities, but for the people that are housed in there, like the Irish guy from Boston that we heard is calling it more like a concentration camp where he hasn't seen the light of day, no fresh air, people are getting beat. There's people dying in captivity. People losing their health is rapidly declining in these facilities. I mean, it's clearly inhumane treatment. Again, not on a one-to-one level in that aspect, but you can see how kind of where they got their policies, where they got how they're going to get around, what the citizenry might say about this stuff. So it might be on a much smaller scale than what we were looking at, right? The intent may not be as evil and to a level that they wanted, as the Nazis wanted, but that doesn't mean that a lot of people aren't getting hurt along the way and that deaths aren't absolutely taking place, right? So again, this is another aspect of how long are we going to stay silent if we continue to see this shit happening? 10,000, 20,000 square foot facilities that weren't meant to hold human inhabitants that are now going to be, holding 10,000, 20,000, political dissidents, people that didn't say the right thing on Twitter, people that just had a brown skin, black skin, didn't have their papers on them at the time, have no criminal record, but just kind of were out there using their First Amendment right to protest or their Second Amendment to carry a handgun, whatever it may be. That's where they're going to store these people now. And it's quite clear with the money that they're spending, how many of these facilities they're now purchasing.
they need a method of killing, quiet and discreet. They choose murder by lethal injection. Some 5,000 innocent children are killed. Their only crime to be sick or disabled. The truth is hidden by false death certificates, blaming measles or pneumonia.
It's Hitler sort of kind of dipping his toe in the water with the German public to see what he can get away with.
Then the regime escalates the program, targeting tens of thousands of disabled adults in institutions across Germany. Ramping up the numbers involves more doctors, and some voice doubts about the legality of the policy. It's a problem that goes to the Führer himself.
And so Hitler wrote a note, which he rarely did, and signed.
So again, this is where he puts his name to it himself, right?
Saying to the people in the chancellery concerned with the medical profession that this was now a policy that could be followed legitimately.
For the German doctors, it's now official. They are obeying the Führer's orders.
That's what the new culture is, they say to themselves. That's the environment. That's the classic road to hell.
A secret department, known as T4, is set up to mastermind the process. To kill so many, quickly and quietly, they need new techniques. What the men at T4 come up with is a shower room. Except these pipes and shower heads don't carry water. They deliver poisonous carbon monoxide gas.
In many ways, the euthanasia program represents the absolute bestiality of the Nazi regime.
Wait, what happened? What's going on? YouTube says why? It says I'm up on YouTube. I don't have Twitch. YouTube kicked me off. Why? What the fuck would that happen? Like, I don't understand. You can't learn about history on these fucking sites?
Tens of thousands.
This is literally posted to YouTube. Why can't we consume what's posted to YouTube? Hold on. Can I get back up? Am I talking to myself? Probably. Hold on. Let me try it again. What does it say on YouTube? Stream unavailable. Stream suspended for policy violations. Okie dokie. Well, let me try another one. Let me see if I can end it. Edit. I'll remove it and put it back up. How about that? I don't know. I figured